Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Leather Lounge. My name is Sean Longstreet. I'm the community advocate for Leather Wallet and host for the show. Today's show is a double feature and is also loaded with some juicy community updates. This is also the first episode of our summer season, and I'm super excited for what's in store. We're going to see the rollout of Nakamoto, SBTC, and to be honest, all this talk of all-time high July has got me feeling pretty bullish. So we've got a lot to look forward to over the next few months, especially within the Stacks ecosystem. And on today's show, we're going to feature Dan Trevino from Boom Wallet and Christopher Perceptions from No Code Clarity. They are two true OGs from the Stacks community, and I'm super excited to hear from them and learn more about what they're working on and to get their thoughts on everything happening in and around the greater Bitcoin ecosystem. We're also going to be checking in with Brandon from Trust Machines to learn more about the .locker partnership. And we'll also check in on the DeGrants update from Good Kitty and Hero Gamer later in the show. But first, I do want to start with a PSA. So lately, there have been a lot of airdrops you may have seen. You may have noticed some tokens showing up in the activity tab in your Leather wallet. And they look familiar and include names like New York City Coin Genesis, Miami Coin, Bitflow Genesis. These are malicious SIP10 tokens on the Stacks network, and they point to URLs that try to drain user funds. So a big shout out to Bogachev and the Megapont community for alerting all of us early on this. I also want to commend the Leather team for investigating these right away and informing the community and pushing an update that filters out all malicious SIP10 tokens. So the latest version of Leather is 642.2. So do make sure that you've got the latest Leather. In order for a wallet to be drained, a user would have to either manually type in the malicious URL. It's not clickable, so you'd have to manually type it in, or connect Leather to a malicious dApp. From then, you'd have to approve a send request. And if you tried to do this, you would be presented with a warning indicating that this transaction is not secure. And this is something that Leather included in the recent update. So hats off to Leather for moving fast on this. And it's a good reminder to all of us to never connect Leather to URLs that you don't fully trust. And you should also consider using multiple wallets so that if you do accidentally fall for a scam or you connect to a malicious dApp by accident, you don't lose everything. So be vigilant. Be cautious. We're quite lucky to be part of a thriving community with members and builders that are always looking out for each other. So if you're unsure about anything, it never hurts to reach out and ask someone. Speaking of great community members and builders, let's get started with Dan Trevino from Boom Wallet. So Boom Wallet is transforming the world of Bitcoin payments I want to make sure Dan is okay. Dan's good to go. Thank you, Brandon, for managing the controls over here. All right, Boom Wallet, transforming the world of Bitcoin payments by simplifying the user experience with its innovative open source wallet. They're focused on bridging the gap between traditional finance systems and the decentralized world of Bitcoin. And they offer streamlined interface and powerful features that make Bitcoin transactions more accessible and user-friendly. So with support for onboarding, for fiat onboarding, Stacks integration, SBTC payment layers, Boom Wallet ensures a seamless experience for managing Bitcoin and Stacks tokens. All right, Dan, welcome to the show.
Morning. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to come on, and I'm excited to dig in and get a little bit more about like your history. And real quick, let me remind everyone: please retweet the space. Do check out the pinned tweets in the nest, as they're always going to be a good source of information. So yeah, let's get the Leather Lounge filled up today. So anyone who's been around the block here at Stacks for a while knows Boom Wallet. It's a familiar name, a familiar logo. So Dan, I definitely want to get into your history, but also can you just give us a quick introduction and what you're doing now with Boom?
Sure. My name is Dan Trevino. I guess, builder, owner, developer, whatever, at Boom. I've been around Stacks and Blockstack before that forever. And right now, like I said, just working on version 2 of the Boom wallet. The original Boom was the first web wallet and the first NFT platform on Stacks. And so we're looking to kind of build on that kind of innovation for V2. And I can talk more about that in a little bit.
Awesome. Well, let's hear about your history on Stacks and what first brought you to Bitcoin, what brought you to Stacks, and why are you choosing to build in this ecosystem?
Sure. It's for me, ultimately, it's mainly about the people. That's the short version. The long version is in 2016. I was looking at different cryptocurrencies and had actually started reading some information on Ethereum, and I ran across Munib's Medium post about scaling Ethereum, which was really well thought out and kind of rational. And what he said since is, it's just math, which I loved. I loved that kind of take on building out blockchains, scaling blockchains. And so from that Medium post, I looked up Blockstack and joined their Slack at the time. And I saw that the engineers were kind of heads down focused on building rather than at the time, a lot of blockchains were a lot of smoke and no substance. Sorry, a lot of signal. Sorry, a lot of noise, no signal. And yeah, it's a better metaphor. Sorry, not mixed up. But yeah, so the engineers were head down builders. I really appreciated that ethos and that kind of attitude, and so hung around in the Slack channel. Eventually, became an advocate. Started doing meetups. Started building because as I was doing meetups, I thought, okay, well, I need to start developing again. If I'm going to tell people how to build on Stacks, I need to understand it. So I started building on Stacks or Blockstack at the time with the existing libraries, and have just been doing that ever since.
Wow. So what in your background did you build upon when you transitioned to start building, like learning Clarity and building on Bitcoin through Stacks?
Yeah, I went to school and took computer science. At the time, a lot of when I came out of school, a lot of the jobs that I were doing were either C language stuff, which if you're not familiar with C, and you're not using like standard libraries and some other tooling, you're basically rebuilding everything from scratch every time. So I mean, talk about like fundamental pieces like lists and hashes and things like that, or B trees and things like that. So you're building a lot of that stuff over and over again. I did some Java development, and that was like semi-liberating because I didn't have to rebuild pieces of code over and over again. But coding was never like my first love. So I did that for a while, became a team lead, and then just kind of progressed more on the management side over time from the development perspective. And so when I was looking around, I had still done development as like a hobby. It's always been part of what I do. It was more of a hobby for a while, as I did more like program management, project management roles. So it was an easy transition. It wasn't even really a transition at the time. It was really just like taking on Blockstack development as a hobby instead of like Android development, which is what I had been doing.
Wow. Okay. So walk us through the first time you had the idea of building Boom, and what problems were you aiming to solve with this?
The first time was actually pre-Stacks blockchain. So Boom's evolution was a little bit of a jump, a couple of jumps from place to place. I had written a Blockstack application called Note Riot that basically provided secure decentralized note taking on Blockstack using it used to be the Stacks.js, I guess, or it was Blockstack.js. I can't remember the library name, but it incorporated all of the pieces that you see in Stacks.js now as one kind of monolithic library. We used Gaia at the time to save data and encrypt it. And so one of the users actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, I would love to contribute." We started working on projects together, and our first project together was going to be a Lightning wallet, which is what Boom started off as. And I don't remember if it was he or I got sick, and we basically didn't finish the hackathon. So we kind of set it aside, and then Stacks started coming out with the blockchain development. We did a lot of work around testnet. We built some node software for ARM for Raspberry Pi. We did the initial builds for that, and also started building like a Stacks desktop based on the node. So you would have everything, your Gaia hub locally, and your node locally, and you could just like use a local version of Stacks. So we started building that, and then later we built an app. Basically, it was an app cataloger. So at the time, there were up to 400 Blockstack apps, and there were some tools that were used to identify and categorize them, but we weren't really happy with those. So we started building this app category, an app store, basically. And we took the Boom code and started migrating that over. And then halfway through that, we decided we really wanted to not just build an app store, but start building more functional blockchain tools, because again, Stacks was becoming available at that time. I believe Boom V1 was available like 9 days after the launch of the Stacks blockchain. And so we had just decided to start building tools from that point. And that's when we implemented the first NFTs, which were not standardized at the time. There was no SIP9. But we built NFTs on Stacks, and then obviously all of the basic web wallet functionality.
Wow. Okay. Hopefully anyone in here, if you have questions about Stacks, we have since we have the two of the biggest OGs in the house, they can really answer any questions. So feel free to come up on stage. We're going to questions to keep asking, but yeah, if anyone wants to come up and ask questions, now's the time to do it. So, okay, let me ask you then about, storing data on IPFS versus Gaia. When did that change happen?
Well, I think with Gaia, the focus on profiles, with the Stacks blockchains, Stacks V2, which was the 2021 launch, whenever it was. The focus became less and less about profiles, and Gaia became less important. There were still some tools using Gaia, like Sigil. And I think it was just more of a lack of attention to Gaia more than anything. Gaia has its own problems. It had its own problems when you're dealing with it kind of in a community sense, where it was great for encrypting your personal data. It is not great for sharing data. I would have to get somebody else's public key, encrypt the data that I wanted to share, and then put it in a known place where other applications could access it, right? And so in order to share data with the existing Gaia libraries at the time. So we started doing things like that, like with NoteWrite, we started building functionality so that I could always look in this like shared /username folder to see if somebody was sharing with something with me, right? But that's kind of clunky. IPFS was really kind of the best solution for like the NFT boom, which was like August of that year. I think it was like 9 months after the launch, really, is when it took off.
Yeah.
IPFS was really the best solution. We talked about doing things like deploying to Gaia, which would allow you to do things like keep mints private, right, until you were ready to share them. But there were not a whole lot of great use cases for Gaia around NFTs, which you really wanted to be public to actually have value, right?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Last week, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking with some of the community from Rue, and Ian Banksia came up with a solution for DMT mints on Stacks. What are your thoughts on being able to do basically like inscriptions on the Stacks network?
I heard about that, but I didn't see it. I haven't paid much attention to it. I mean, I don't really. I think whatever people want to do. Like I said, I think experimentation is good. Or maybe I didn't say that. I was just in a previous space where I was talking about experimentation. Experimentation is great. I have questions. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that don't map over from the UTXO model of Bitcoin to the account model that Stacks uses, right? But to the extent that like we can build new and fun things, I think we should be building as much as possible and trying as many things as possible. Some of them I'll complain about, some of them I won't. I'm just like an old, kind of crusty blockchainer. But I think in general, like, we should be trying as many things as possible because it's going to extend the functionality, and there's going to be things that we haven't thought of yet. The classic kid in a garage somewhere is going to build something on top of that combines maybe the DMT with something else to build something completely new and innovative and fun.
I know for me as an artist, inscribing on Bitcoin L1 can be prohibitively expensive. And in a space where we want to enable as many artists and creatives as possible to take advantage of connecting with new audience members and making their work stay forever, they either have to already have enough funds available to cover inscription costs, or they kind of just have to take a risk, inscribe it, and hope that they can make sales to cover the cost. So for me, Stacks is a great bridge and a great entry point for a lot of artists. They can experiment a little bit. And they're having to make some sort of compromise with it being on IPFS because it really isn't forever. It's not the most ideal storage solution. So for me, I'm super intrigued to see what we can do with the Stacks, like Stacks inscriptions, basically, S ordinals. So yeah, I'm always asking around, and the Stacks ecosystem is still kind of sleepy. And I think like I said in the opening, I think this quarter, this half of the year, we're going to just see an explosion of excitement and development happening. So yeah, I'm always asking around to see what people are excited about, what's on their radar. Because I think, sky's the limit over here. Like you said, it's really good to experiment, find what works, find what doesn't work.
To your point, I think like ordinals are a trade-off too, right? Like, you have limited amounts of space, and like you said, it gets really prohibitively expensive the more space you use. And I mean, that's why we're not seeing huge beautiful images as NFT or as ordinal NFTs. So yeah, I mean, there's things like the recursive ordinals, and there's other techniques. I love what, Jim is doing over with the music stuff. So there's a whole lot of different ways to kind of mitigate some of that. But yeah, I think the more that we can experiment in Stacks and lower costs for people, and make things easier, quite frankly, the boom proposition is based on the fact that we've got like much easier onboarding than regular Bitcoin. I think that's important.
Well, let me real quick just mention to any listeners who are not familiar with. So Jim.BTC is working on a way of inscribing music on Bitcoin, and he has created a system called audio nulls. So basically you can inscribe samples, and then he has built an on-chain player that can bring all of these pieces together, play the samples at the right time, layer, mix. It's really impressive what he's doing. So I know he's on the list of people to get on the show. So we're going to check in with him soon. So yeah, let's Dan bring it back to Boom now. Maybe you can talk about the evolution of how you got to where you are now, and then as soon as Nakamoto goes live, what is Boom enabling for everyone, and what will that look like?
Yeah. Well, so Boom took a little bit of a pause. I think one of the things people loved most about Boom at the time was the Boom boxes, which was basically a liquid stacking with NFTs before liquid stacking was a thing. That marketplace never really worked out. Our intention was to provide NFTs for folks that they would be able to buy and sell and get that Stacks liquidity. That wasn't really a thing. But people loved the unique artists that we were pulling up. We tried to highlight community artists every time, and basically provided limited mints of those NFTs, right? So if you created a boombox, it was a 1 of 100, 1 of 200, 1 of 300 limited mint. And we did that for a while. When the stacking hard forks happened, we had one, and then they had like 2 or 3 in a row because of some errors. We didn't renew the boom boxes at the time, and after that, I actually started working for Deep Lake, which is a Bitcoin API company, a startup. So I had basically taken a hiatus from Boom for a year, from last February until this recent February, and when it became apparent that Deep Lake wasn't going to monetize the way we needed it to, I basically came back to Boom. I looked around at what some of the frustrating things that I saw, and with the promise of Nakamoto and SBTC, my thesis is that we'll be able to create a better Lightning than Lightning. Now, we won't match Lightning's transaction times, but we'll be good enough. We'll on the order of, a Visa payment or MasterCard payment. So we can create a payment system that is every bit as good as the Lightning payments. Maybe, like I said, it won't be quite as fast, but onboarding for a payment system that utilizes Bitcoin, it would be much easier. I don't know if anyone here has seen the SBTC peg in, peg out process. They've already got like a really slick peg in, peg out process and APIs for doing that from other wallets. So like in Boom, we'll be able to do peg ins and peg outs of SBTC from Bitcoin. Those are Bitcoin transactions, but super smooth. And yeah, we basically provide intend to provide like the whole Lightning experience without the overhead of having to manage channels, having to stand up watchtowers, having to manage your own Lightning node and your own Bitcoin node. And those are the things that are typically required if you want to be a non-custodial Lightning user. You can certainly be a custodial Lightning user and get away with doing much less. But with Stacks, SBTC, and the Nakamoto Flashbox, you don't have to make those trade-offs. We think we can do a lot of other functionality utilizing BNS to make payments easier. We can assign, BNS names to smart contracts to make shops a lot better than what we see on Lightning today, like the simple decentralized shops on Lightning. So there's a lot of functionality that Stacks gives us to build on. That my vision is to see as many Stacks wallets as we have as Lightning wallets, and wherever we're seeing Lightning shops being created, we should be creating Stacks shops and or not Stacks shops, but it'll be SBTC shops, and that's going to be a much easier build out, I think, for users to take advantage of.
Yeah, I'm wondering, as you're talking, I'm imagining how revolutionary this is from just a UX perspective, because there's a handful of us who are excited about using Bitcoin for the novelty of it. We're passionate about the ecosystem, the space. We want to help it grow. But for a lot of people, they don't really care what's happening under the hood, and they might, Bitcoin transactions are slow, at least 10 minutes, and they cost a lot of money. Like the fees are only going to be getting higher. So that's why what you're doing with Boom and capitalizing on the efficiency and speed and lower transaction fees that Nakamoto and SBTC will enable is so revolutionary. So Nakamoto, it was pushed back, and now we're going to be going live in sometime in late August, I believe. As soon as it goes live, are you hitting the ground running? What's that going to look like for you?
Absolutely. Right now, I'm working on the alpha version of Boom. It has basic transaction capability, but it's using Stacks on the slow network, right? So we don't really get to see the functionality or the really good parts of what we're expecting, but the functionality is exactly the same, right? So when we get a better Nakamoto testnet, we'll go back and just validate everything in there. Boom Wallet will work with any SIP10 token. So SBTC is going to be a SIP10, but you could use Welsh, you could use Nothing token, you can use whatever you want to use to build out a payment system if you wanted to. And yeah, so we'll be ready to hit the ground running at the time. We're focusing right now, cleaning up some errors. I think the alpha build broke recently, but fixing some errors. But it's essentially that the payment part is done. The next parts that we're working on are like finalizing the payment specification. So as I mentioned, I would love to see like 15 different SBTC wallets out here for making payments eventually.
Mm-hmm.
To make that happen, we want to standardize payment request formats and payment request protocols. And so when you make when you scan a QR code, eventually we're hoping like Leather adopts this process too, right? So that I can pay for my Leather wallet, or I can pay for my Xverse wallet, or I can pay for one of the dozen new wallets that are just focused on payments. But we want to make that standardized, right? And so that's part of the next part of the focus. And then in order to support those payments, we're building in a social component, a chat. So if I wanted to send you a payment and you've already signed up with Boom, you'll get that payment in a chat, in a DM, basically, in your Boom wallet. And so that's the second part of the build out that's going to happen once we finalize the standard specifications, adding the social pieces so that you can chat with people, share payment requests, argue about them, whatever you're going to do. And then later expanding that functionality out as well.
Wow, that's a lot to manage. I'm noticing the room is filling up here. I see some developers in the room and great community members. So let me just put the invitation out. If anyone wants to jump on stage and throw some questions to Dan and Christopher Perceptions, who we've got coming up next, please join us on stage and bring your questions. So Dan, before we close out on Boom, let me ask you about just anything else that's on your radar right now within the Stacks and Bitcoin ecosystem. What are you excited about? Obviously Nakamoto is really excited, but what can you point us to? People to follow, projects to be aware of, ways that anyone can get involved and be supportive?
I think the most visible thing for me recently has been around BNS, obviously with Trust Machines making the .locker announcement yesterday. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. And I say interesting from I don't know what to do with it yet. I've been focused on kind of development things, so I don't really see a whole lot else that's going on in the world. But there's an open question in my mind, and maybe it's not valid, but how BNS is going to progress. Obviously, BNS is a core part of what we're trying to do to simplify payments. Again, if you can add a name to a shop, and I can just pay a shop, or I can pay a subscription with a name instead of an address, that's going to simplify things. And so what does .locker mean to us in the long term? I think that's the biggest question. I haven't seen any information about migrations of existing BNS names. So it looks like it's like this clean break kind of thing, but I'm not positive. And so that's the biggest curiosity kind of issue, roadblock, whatever that I see in the future.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of questions being asked about this too. It does look like a clean break. I'm not sure. It seems like .locker is really functioning as a bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. So yeah, I think, and we're going to have Brandon talk a little bit more about that later. And we'll, I think Trust Machines is going to be making more announcements and clarity. And Munib has a good tweet about it too that I'll have to pin in the nest soon. Awesome, Dan. Well, before I transition to Chris with no code clarity, anything else you want to add or put on our radar?
No, go sign up for the mailing list at boom.money. And we'll be making announcements through that mailing list over time. Like I said, look for the beta with social features coming up after the Nakamoto release, and then we'll be hitting a Bitcoin payments ecosystem when SBTC drops.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, if you can, Dan, we'd love if you could stick around. And then after we talk with Chris, we're going to open it up for more questions and just hear from more community members. So thanks again for being here and providing your insights and history and letting us see how you're developing and contributing to the ecosystem. It's really awesome. So thanks again. All right. So next, we're going to go talk to Christopher Perceptions, and he is building something called No Code Clarity. Like I mentioned in our intro, a true Stacks OG who's been here from day one. I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person and talking with him. He's doing a ton of building in the space, and it's been awesome to see what he's doing with No Code Clarity, which is revolutionizing app development by making it accessible to anyone. Dedicated to mass adoption, in a world where Bitcoin-based apps are the future, their platform allows anyone to design and create and launch Bitcoin smart contracts without writing a single line of code. And thus, this is democratizing development and fostering innovation within the Bitcoin ecosystem. So, Chris, thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor. It's a pleasure. Happy to be here. Super stoked for this. I've been looking forward to this all day, to be honest.
Yeah, me too, man. And I gotta just tease everyone here. So Christopher is not just an amazing coder and Bitcoin advocate, but also an incredible musician too. So we're going to be checking in. No laughing emojis. It's really good. Seriously, we're going to play some of his music, and it's incredible. And I love seeing this crossover. A lot of the people that I've been meeting, especially in Trust Machines and Leather Wallet, and in this greater community, like they've just got they're hiding these side talents, and a lot of these people are musical. So maybe I shouldn't be surprised that Christopher is a fantastic musician too. So before we check in on your music, let's dive in on No Code Clarity. So can you tell us what the vision was for No Code Clarity? What inspired you to create the platform so that people can build on Bitcoin without code?
Yeah, I was laughing because I didn't expect that pivot. That kind of caught me off guard. But yeah, we can get into that. But first, I want to give Dan his virtual flowers. I got into the ecosystem roughly 2020. My first official Discord message was October 2nd, 2021, and I was asking for clarity resources. I originally got into the ecosystem through that and wanting to build a decentralized marketplace, kind of like eBay, except for Bitcoin. And I knew that if I did it in America, I would need money transmitter licenses per state, which is cumbersome and costly. And at that time, I was a solo founder, solo dev. So I'm like, if I can just do a smart contract on Bitcoin, decentralize the setup, I could potentially circumvent that for a time, not financial or legal advice, of course, because America is kind of a minefield still legally. But I knew that smart contracts and decentralizing would be key. I didn't know if it was possible to do that with Bitcoin. I kept digging. I found Stacks. I read the white paper. I fell in love, jumped into the ecosystem head first, began combing through docs. This is when the Clarity book wasn't even finished. Like most of the section was grayed out.
Mhm.
But I found out about Boom. And that's actually how I found out about Pool. Started stacking using Boom. I have like 20 plus Boom NFTs. So between Hero Gamer and
Wow.
Dan, they were kind of like my first entry points into the ecosystem. So I've never told Dan this actually, but I wanted to make sure that he knew this and it was like a public thank you for what you built because it allowed for people like me to come in.
Awesome. Yeah, Dan, I know Christopher's not the only one too.
For sure. But yeah, to talk about no code clarity, I know that less than 1% of the world knows how to technically program. So ever since I was young, I just had this thing with the arts and with computers or TVs or anything electronic. Like I was just a fish for water. I could fix stuff. I could break down iPhones. I could put new screens. Like just I've always been like techie. But when it came to peers and other people around me, I realized they were hyper dependent on people smarter than me or people like me who were in tech. And when I found out about Bitcoin in 2016, this concept of like a democratized system was really impactful to me for so many reasons. And we can dive into that if you'd like to. But I had a crazy background, grew up between literally light and dark. My dad, who was in and out of my life, he was a drug dealer. So I saw that world up close. And my mother, who was a retired evangelist, she was in the church, and I would be around mayors and self-made millionaires, and I saw both worlds up close. And I
Wow.
had a chance to study people at a psychological level. If we were to remove the morality, people, if they had a level playing field, generally speaking, they would do things that would benefit them and not destroy themselves or their communities. So I looked at tech like, okay, if people have these ideas and they're able to get a leg up and build and go from idea to V0 and from V0 to V1, how helpful would that be? The total addressable market of no code marrying with AI is like in the multi billions, almost trillions. So there's not only a market for this, but it also would do a net good. So that's where this idea really began to germinate. Connected with my CTO, got a full stack dev. We are going to be onboarding a new hire as of this month as well. And here we are. So that's ultimately the journey, but also why I think no code could help people because it's a democratizing agent. It's going to help people, whether they're developers or non technical. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So when the word democratization gets thrown around a lot, and I think a lot of people, maybe not the listeners here, but in general, a lot of Americans, especially, I think they have, when they hear the word technology, honestly, I think it's very off-putting for them. For most people, they associate it with like, tech billionaires who are just living the sweet life because they know how to write some code, and maybe people aren't feeling the advantages of technology. And this is like to a disservice to the community, I feel like, to the world, to not give technology. I know, for example, like, Facebook, social media, there's a lot of negative consequences about that. But I think people conflate like the bad parts of technology and just blanket statement and say like technology is bad. It's making the world a worse place. Why can't we just like roll it back to what was happening, when I was a kid, When I hear you talk about how technology development can truly democratize access to a better world and a better life and can help people pull themselves up by their bootstraps and make for a better life and lead to, a rising tide lifting all boats situation. When I hear you speak about that, it's very articulate and better said than many. So I want to commend you on the way you talk about the virtues of technology.
That means a lot. along with, I feel like I've lived a bunch of different stories in my life. Um, I first got into the ecosystem of Web3 in general by learning and then teaching other people. So
Hmm.
that background as an educator, which you and I kind of mirror in that regard, you more so on an official note as like a teacher in the past. But for me, I did a lot of meetups, a lot of courses on Udemy before they like start banning Web3 courses, which is a whole nother story. But I had
Wow.
like hundreds of students all over the world teaching them about NFTs, teaching them about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrency. And I know that education precedes mass adoption. So I think for developers, for founders, for community members such as the DeGrants team, they've been killing it. I think that we have to remember that we're still a part of this nascent group of people globally that are talking about this stuff right now. Most people are trying to figure out how they're going to pay their car note or what's going to happen if they get laid off from their job and they still have a mortgage and the kids are yelling and they need to make a bologna sandwich and life is very, very real for people.
Yeah.
So meeting people where they are and educating people in as simple language as possible, I think is going to be the gateway for curiosity. Because when you have statistics like 60 plus banks in America are near insolvency, meaning they're broke, based off of what the FDIC said. And this isn't just me pulling something out of the air. You can Google that. The FDIC is saying that 60 plus banks in America are near insolvency. If banks start collapsing, people are going to one, panic, and then two, begin looking for a different system. But that system needs to be accessible and easily understood. Because if people want a hibachi experience, they're going to go to a hibachi restaurant. If people just want to live, they're probably going to use a microwave. It needs to be as simple as like a microwave in explanation. And then they can go and end up sitting next to Manib at a hibachi restaurant, waxing poetic about technical nuances. They'll get there, but you got to meet people where they are.
Okay, let's dig in more. Tell me more about meeting people where they are and onboarding, because I think a lot of us, like, we're in our own little silo echo chamber. I know for me personally, like, there, I can probably count on one hand the number of people who I in real life talk to about Bitcoin.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Web3. So I don't know if I know anyone else in my circle who has done more for those two things: meeting people where they're at and trying to onboard and educate everyone else. What's that been like? What have you learned? What needs to be done?
Ooh, that's tough, bro. I think that's a really good question. I think it starts with understanding your superpower. So when I would talk with people at the Stacks Foundation, and for those who didn't know, I did a 2 year contract with the Stacks Foundation, helped along the ecosystem, got to meet all of the top tier builders, supporting behind the scenes, trying to even get a Stacks debit card. That almost happened.
Wow.
Still working on that though, especially with SBTC. That might be a little easier to revisit. But we were very close during my tenure at the Stacks Foundation to having a Stacks credit card or debit card. But with that, I understood that the superpower of the Stacks ecosystem, from what Mitchell, who's current interim executive director, he said that it's the community. That's the superpower of Stacks. Yes,
Yeah.
there's proof of transfer. Yes, there's all these amazing breakthroughs in tech, but at the DNA molecular level, it's literally the people. And I can't help but echo that same sentiment. I've met some of the most bright, amazing, beautiful, sharp people in my entire life in this ecosystem. And not only that, but they have an intense, deep love for Bitcoin and wanting to innovate on it. So understanding your superpower is going to be very helpful, because then you're going to take that said superpower and you are going to go to your audience. Now, who is your audience? At one point, it wasn't the Bitcoin maxis. I'm from the camp of like the Bitcoin preferred. Like, I'm open to a multi-chain world, but if I look anywhere first, it's going to be Bitcoin and Bitcoin layers, period. And then I might comb outside of the hairs a little bit from that. But understanding your audience, understanding your superpower, and then making sure your language is curated in a way where it can land, where there's understanding and at least awareness. So I'll share a brief story. I used to live in Raleigh, North Carolina, a little bit of a nomad, not like Lewis from Ryder. That dude is everywhere. He's like a true digital nomad, but I
Yeah.
did my thing a little bit, traveling around countries, states, cities. I went to a Bitcoin meetup in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I had a Stacks sticker on my old laptop. I'm sitting there, and one dude notices it. He's like, "You like Stacks?" And then the whole room just looked at me, and I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, "Why?" And I broke it down. I started talking about SBTC, Nakamoto. This was last year,
Okay.
and they all were like, "Oh, that sounds kind of cool." And then like the guns went down, and then I was able to like start to build a rapport. They even added like a Stacks channel in their Slack, so we can like
Wow.
talk about stuff. Now it was very hard to have some of those conversations in, let's say, a place like Austin, Texas, and I won't say the name, but there was a community of people. I met with one of them, and they're like, if you speak about Stacks, you could get blackballed. And I'm like,
Wow.
I'm a grown man. You're not gonna tell me what I can or can't speak about. But regardless, I look at it as learning my audience, learning language, how language can serve as a signal, and then eventually knowing that there is a shift coming because markets dictate technology. People wanted an easier way to do things, so that's where Google came in. But then you have something like Perplexity, where it's leveraging AI and it's putting Google almost on the fences in a competitive manner. So although ecosystem titans now have to duke it out and scrap, the market wins because now we have more options. The market will always dictate what is going to win. You just have to cater to people where they are. And then lastly, from the standpoint of onboarding, not being afraid to, take the blows and the bruises. Those who go through the doors first generally get shot or stabbed, but those after, they're generally welcomed. And if you survive, then you're an OG, so that's cool. And also less violent because you survived. But I think there's something to be stated about being willing to be first, because no one, even with investors, no, it's very hard for people who are raising to find that first investor. You might pitch 50 times, 100 times before you get that one person that says yes. But success begets success. If you can get that first one, then like it gets a lot easier, potentially. Same thing, I think, from the standpoint of onboarding. Once you know your superpower, you curate your language, you figure out like your audience, and you're willing to be first, then it gets a lot easier.
Wow. Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of this concept of rejection therapy. I don't know if you've heard it. I think there was a TED talk that I saw probably a decade ago. And this guy found that he had so much anxiety when he was asking for things because of the possibility of getting a no or getting like ridiculed or laughed at. So he told himself like for 100 days, he was going to ask someone for something. And it became like increasingly ridiculous. And, most of the time it was like people would laugh and say no, but there were actually so many yeses that led to the most incredible experiences and help and connections. So I think that a lot of people in here, we are passionate about this because we've gone through the education and we know what it means for the world and for the community at large. So the drive to like onboard people and educate people is there. The passion is there. And yeah, I think it just takes a little bit of thick skin and understanding the greater good. Like it doesn't matter if you get a no, it doesn't matter if you get laughed at, because like you said, say like if your first experience was what you experienced in Texas, and then you went to Raleigh and you thought like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. Like you would have missed the opportunity to onboard more people. But yeah, you get that Bitcoin thick skin and you just be willing to start up the conversations, advocate, articulate what your point is. And that's how we make progress in the space.
Yeah, 1000%. And I feel the same way regarding no code clarity, where a lot of people didn't understand because it's like, well, I could just code it. I can deploy it from command line and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, that's you. But if we're talking about mass adoption, in order for more users to come, eventually some of those users are going to use things, have ideas, and want to spin up things on their own. And we had an agency arm of No Code Clarity, and I can tell you for a fact, like it's gonna take anywhere from on the very low conservative end, 15,000 to $30,000 to have a proper MVP. If you want it to be streamlined, mobile responsive, if it's mobile apps, that can vary, but that's generally the ballpark figure. Most people are like, well, I might not have, 15 to $30,000 lying around, but if I knew how to do it myself, I could tinker.
Yeah.
So meeting people where they are, trying to build the bridge where it's like, hey, it's possible. So even in our V1, you're able to leverage and kind of do tech stacking. If you like Chat GPT for code generation, cool. If you like Claude for code generation, cool. It can spin up something for you by way of HTML or CSS. You can paste it in our front end studio launchpad and you have a UI viewer. So now you're going from like code that might be sitting in a file on your computer as a no code dev because you might not understand HTML and what the brackets and body and H1 and all
Yeah.
of that means. You can paste it and you can have the UI viewer show you. It's like, oh, well, I can live edit and prototype this. I can save it. Soon you're going to be able to leverage tools like Zapier. We have a Stack Zap. It allows for testnet transactions and things. We're going to beef it up for mainnet things and also deploying Clarity smart contracts. And then along with this, we have our AI agent that is trained on Clarity in the Clarity book and a lot of different things. We even have a Chat GPT tool. It's called Hyper Clarity AI, and we've actually shared this with hackathon participants at the EZA hackathons, where it's kind of given them a leg up, and they've been able to learn Clarity
Mm.
quicker. So not
Yeah.
only does our platform teach people how to code and how to learn Clarity, but it also generates and audits for them. Here's a little alpha. We're fine tuning a AI agent. We're going to have a multi-agent system that people are going to be able to take part of and have a full life cycle deployed within a couple prompts, front end, back end, clarity, done. One of the things that we're fine tuning now is a plugin generator, which could make way for a marketplace. So if you have a problem and you create a plugin that you can use within your app, you also will be able to sell said plugin. So now no code devs are launching dApps without code and making money from it. So that's coming soon. Really excited about that.
Wow. Okay, so just like Midjourney has enabled really anyone to realize their creative visions and express themselves in a completely unique way because it's a new tool. Now, anyone, so instead of just developers being able to realize their visions, their ideas, and create things that they think will make the world a better place, we're coming back to this democratization idea, right? You're enabling anyone, theoretically anyone, but okay, more people, to solve problems and create products that are going to solve the problems that they're trying to solve in their own lives. So it's really incredible. What are some of the things that you've already seen in some of these developer days? What have people already done with this?
Great question. So in our console, we have like roughly over 100 no code devs, and there are a lot of ideas being spun up. One is like, okay, well, how do I map this thing out? So what is the actual lay of the land regarding a proper landing page? So for those who've ever built a landing page, you'll be able to follow me. A landing page isn't just like, hey, buy my NFT. It's like you kind of got to tee people up. So there's a flow. You have a hero section, and that hero section is not Hero Gamer. Shout out to Hero Gamer, but it's the section where it's the first thing that a person's gonna see. There's an image, there's a header, there's subtext, and then there's a call to action. So we're walking through the educational flow of I want to build this app. I want to map this out. I can prototype and I can generate, but what does it look like to have this actually flow so that what I'm generating and launching is landing with my intended audience? So there's been a lot of mentorship, as well as like, hey, I want to see this kind of tool built. Is this possible with Stacks? Is this possible with no code clarity at V1 stage? So it's been a lot of mentoring at this point, but we have some ideas that are cooking. I'm really excited. So I think with this next update, we'll be able to have like a gallery of what has been built using no code clarity, and I think that's gonna blow the lid off of this thing.
Man, I'm excited to see that. Well, in a parallel reality, I have loads of free time and I am using your app to create the decentralized Udemy that cannot be removing Web3 content.
That's fire. That's super fire. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Man, that's super dope. That's a good idea.
Someone will. You heard it here first. Take it up. Great, man. Okay, so what else is on just in the general ecosystem? What else is on your radar right now?
Oh, that's easy. Hash Havoc, Gecko Security, the fact that Gecko Security came out, and then shortly after, Coin Fabric made an announcement that they have a security tool for Clarity. Um, yeah, this is like the perfect time.
Would you mind backing up one step for anyone who hasn't heard about those things?
Yeah, of course. So Hash Havoc, they came from, they've been in the ecosystem for a while, but they are allowing, and David's probably going to kill me because I'm butchering this. I want to make sure that this lands well. Um, it's a way for you to have amazing access to data that's generally been hard to find, especially for non-technical people, and have it callable through APIs or even through a web UI. So if you're looking for all of the holders of the nothing token, for example, they would be able to get that to you within seconds, with a CSV,
Wow.
with like they're killing it and they're builders through and through. So shout out to Hash Havoc, shout out to David, and the team. Also for Gecko Security, they took top prize at the Consensus Hackathon, with EZA. So Kenny, Adam, Han, and myself, we had a chance to meet with this young person. He is a person from London. He flew into the Harvard Hackathon. He flew into Austin, and he took the top prize. He built a fuzzer,
Wow.
which is like a security term to assess the vulnerabilities of a smart contract. And when I tell you this thing is powerful, it's powerful. So my top two go-tos for what I'm excited about, Hash Havoc from the standpoint of democratizing data ultimately, and
Yeah.
Gecko Security by making our ecosystem more bulletproof with smart contracts.
Wow, man. All right. That's a lot. You're so dialed in with the community. So everyone, if you are not following Christopher Perceptions, CMPGFB, is there any like backstory on your Twitter handle?
Oh, you picked up the alpha. Okay, I like to hide in plain sight. So, CMP, my actual initials, Christopher Perceptions is my legal name. We don't have enough time right now, but we can get into that at a later point. But it's my legal
Yeah.
name. And then GFB, it's kind of like a reminder to me. So it's God, Family, Business. So that's the GFB.
All right. Coincidentally, it's also good for Bitcoin.
Facts.
And with that, we will plug Brandon's show every Friday, Good for Bitcoin. Christopher, yeah, please be welcome to stay on. Don't go away because I want to be able to throw some more questions to you. Brandon, let me throw it your way because there's been a big announcement this week. So yeah, tell us about the new Trust Machines partnership with Locker.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me up. And yeah, really great to hear from Chris and Dan. I know both of them super, like you said, super OGs in the space. So really awesome to hear from them. But yeah, we announced .locker yesterday, which is a new domain name. It's a new TLD that's going to be launching on both Web 2 and also Web 3. So really, it's kind of the first of its kind, that is allowing you to sort of link these two worlds together. So really excited, that's now in the public. We've been kind of working on it for a long time. A few months ago, we announced Orange Domains, And this is sort of the first TLD from Orange Domains. And Orange Domains is essentially, it's a joint venture between a few different companies. So it's between Trust Machines from Hero Systems, Two Cows, which is one of the largest domain registrars out there in the ecosystem, and Dish, which is like Dish Network, EchoStar,
Wow.
Another big public company. So it's a joint venture between all these entities, and .locker is, like I said, the first TLD that we're launching, and really excited, to just be, I think of it almost an analogy, like with the Bitcoin ETFs. Essentially, we're going to now have all of these registrars that are on Web 2 that are now going to essentially be selling BNS names in a sense, right? Because you get a BNS name when you buy a .locker. So I'm really excited, just to see all the onboarding that's going to be happening with all these new people entering the space and entering the ecosystem. And it's good for BNS. And I know, there's definitely a lot of questions. You already mentioned the Good for Bitcoin show. I think we're trying to set up a space next Friday to get some folks that, can join, answer some more questions about it. I think also to Dan's question earlier, there's going to be, hopefully by that time, we'll have a lot more clarity on BNS V2. So looking to get that, to everybody as well. I'm also looking forward to more information on BNS V2, and I think most of us on this call are as well. So that's, I guess, a little alpha for what's to come next Friday. We're still trying to lock down the time, but looking forward to having that and giving people an opportunity to ask questions, and it's going to be good.
Awesome. Okay, everyone, I did put a pinned tweet for Munib's announcement of .locker. So if you want to get a little bit more backstory there, and then do stay tuned. Follow Brandon, follow Trust Machines, because every Friday he does Good for Bitcoin. I think we're trying to figure out what the right time will be, but every Friday, it's always the highlight to my week. So that's Good for Bitcoin. Like we talked about earlier, it's a little bit unclear how .locker and .btc names are going to work with each other. So stay tuned. Hot topic, but it'll be good to get some clarity, so to speak. I also, something Dan was talking about was user growth on Stacks, and how we really need to see that adoption happening. So I want to pin this tweet from Tim, pinning it right now. So let's go over this. So Nakamoto is approaching and the stats are rising. So cumulative unique wallets on Stacks have crossed 1.2 million. So this is the total number of addresses that have ever interacted with Stacks. So we've had a 1.29% increase in just 1 month. So maybe it's small, but in real time, that's over 15,000 unique wallets. So it's happening. Nakamoto is just knocking on the door. We're, less than 2 months away. So a lot is going to be happening there. Other announcements in the space, Alex is continuing to open up. Velar over the last 2 months, they've been crushing it. Definitely keep those on your radar. Console also has a new mobile app for iOS and Android. So make sure you're downloading the latest Console app. It'll give you better notification management, faster loading speeds. So they are the best way to manage a community. So if you're sick of those messy Discord messages and rooms, hop over to Console. Okay, so next I want to go over to two of my favorite people from the Stacks. This is just a stacked Stacks OG class reunion today, everyone. So I'm going to send it over to Hero Gamer and Good Kitty to talk about the latest developments in the DeGrants program. Welcome, Hero and Good Kitty. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hey, Longstreet. Hey,
GM.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. In the lounge, that's right. Well, Good Kitty, tell us about what happened last week. Because I'm not going to step on your toes. Give us, for anyone who's not familiar with DeGrants and the NFT path, Why don't you fill us in on that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm heading up the NFT track for the DeGrants program. It's an initiative that it's kind of been, well, it's funded by the Stacks Foundation, but it's been designed and developed for the Stacks community, by the Stacks community over the last couple of months. We had cohort 1 last year, and we started, I think, cohort 2 about 2 months ago. We kind of restructured it this time. We had 5 different tracks. The previous cohort, we kind of just put everything in one bundle. And then for the second cohort, we introduced 5 tracks: DeFi, BNS, community and governance, NFTs, and developers. And it was this incredible blossoming as these kind of communities came together and were able to just really sort of build off each other's energy. We really saw a huge growth in the program and the sort of number of applicants that came in. So it's been a very exciting time. My focus has been, as I said, the NFT category. Let's think. So we put out a call across 5 categories within the NFT track: art, music, film, photography, and literature. And we were looking for projects in both sort of cutting edge traditional art as well as NFT platforms that could sort of enhance the creator collector experience and really just to inject new energy and excitement into Stacks NFT ecosystem and bring our awesome community together again, right? So applications closed last week Friday, and very proudly received 27 really excellent submissions for, unfortunately, which we've only got 90K to split. Because of the quality of them, I can tell you, a really tough day today trying to decide who we should select to receive the funding. We've had applications across all of those 5 categories. We've got an incredible music submission for a project called audiobox.fun, which I'm really excited about. Very innovative and very cool. We've got an exhibition, NFT Africa, which is going to take, proposes to take art through a couple of African countries and have Stacks as a sponsor of that. Another beautiful one of a guy who is teaching children in schools to use AI in their art. Yeah, just some beautiful art projects that I'm struggling to kind of, I don't know, they're also good. I wish I had $100,000. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah, no pressure. Well, so what's that been like? Because not only are you a steward, well, because of that, you're a respected and trusted voice in the space. So how have you been like shepherding these new people into the space, and what's your advice for them? And how have you seen artists shape their proposals to have the best chance of landing well and getting chosen for funding?
You know, I have been absolutely blown away actually at how we provided, we thought there would be, I think in the first cohort, there was a lot more sort of mentorship, a lot more questions asked. But I found this time they really came prepared, and the quality of the submissions was really high. We kind of spoke with them very relaxed sort of environment over the last couple of weeks. And yeah, it's just been very, very interesting to see the number of, or the growth, basically, and the interest in Stacks NFTs. I'm very bullish about it because of this. You know, we, with when Ordinals sort of came on the scene, it brought a lot of new artists into the space. And I think a lot of them are kind of looking for alternative ways to bring their art to Bitcoin. And, we've got file size limitations with ordinals and obviously cost implications. So I think that's also what's making people interested and understanding the difference between the two. I don't know. It's like, it's so many things. I don't know if I veered off topic there. Very excited.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to ask you about the Stacks mixtape, which was your proposal that was enthusiastically approved and adopted in cohort 1. Any updates on that?
Yeah, I am. I started marketing it. It was supposed to be released in July, and then sort of midway through my marketing plan, Nakamoto was pushed out, and I had specifically um, positioned my release date to fall just after the Nakamoto upgrade. So I was kind of hoping to build a little bit off that hype. So my fingers feel a little bit burned this time. So I kind of want to wait until I've seen the rollout and it's there, and then I'm going to drop it. It's complex because there's lots of different things sort of all happening in the ecosystem. And I was chatting to Zero about one or two things when it comes to releasing the music. Obviously, Trip and Monkey's got some really great ideas. And then with Audio Box coming along, which is a platform that kind of takes TikTok, Spotify, SoundXYZ, Twitter, Instagram, and brings it all into one place. So I'm thinking to myself, do I wait for that? Because I'm so proud of what I put together. The music is incredible. The artwork from, 10 Stacks OGs is just gorgeous. And I really wanted to land in a very special place. So it is complex, if I do it on Gamma, it's obviously just sort of NFTs on Gamma. Obviously, they can play it through Parrot Radio. So we do have a sort of a basic infrastructure, but at the same time, the technology is moving fast so quickly. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. I do need to make a decision in the next month, but I was hoping to answer your question in a long way around, sort of September, October.
Well, my own 2 cents is that I think it's a great idea to wait for Nakamoto. I mean, honestly, we're in the summer right now. We're experiencing some summer doldrums. Everyone is kind of checked out and people are building right now. But we're not seeing like the robust enthusiasm and action that we will in the coming bull market. And I personally just, in the back channels and the DMs, I know there's so much happening that is poised and waiting for Nakamoto. So I think when the but yeah, I think that's a wise idea is to wait for Nakamoto. Hiro, can I throw it to you for any updates? I'm also curious if there's anything you can share, not only about cohort 2, but is there anything from cohort 1 that we should, be aware of?
Yes, I think you touched on one of the projects, Good Kitties. Triple Monkeys, basically, I had a catch up with him today. He's basically building out the infrastructure for cohort 1, but he's also delayed by the Nakamoto, basically. But his basically foundation, what he's building on, is pretty robust. And so that I'm really looking forward to that, because I think his stuff is more like unlocking for others. So I think people can build on top of what he's building. So it's not just like one app. It's almost like he's building the infrastructure for other people to build on. So you're going to see probably a lot of people plug into what he's doing. Other stuff, I think PQ from Nonish is okay. He's doing the community tooling, and hopefully he's gonna complete that pretty soon. And then hopefully multiple Discord community can benefit from that tooling, so becomes better community engagement basically. And so that's kind of exciting as well. What else? And then we have Animals Latin America Initiative. So he's creating some content for it. I think he would like better adoption than he had. Like he aims on board like 1,000 Spanish speaker. I think he's like on target to like 100, but he's going to carry on to push that forward. But he's also impacted by the Nakamoto. I think he was also thinking like, oh yeah, there would be a bunch of users coming on, but it's a little bit delayed. So, but it's all good, you know. So he's still carrying on. So yeah, that's the cohort 1. And cohort 2, I think you heard from our leader, Good Kitty. And I'll just put it like in summary, we had really good reception. I think by changing the model to a more category focus, like developers, NFTs, DeFi, BNS, I think you really bring the people who are really interested in that area out, and really building a community around that specific community. And we've had 100 applications. We had over 300,000 requests. So for a small fund, it's actually pretty good. Last time we only had around 45 applications for 25,000. So we double the interest, higher the quality of the applications. We even had just before this call, we had an ex-hero engineer who wanna also submitting his grant. We had hackathon winner, Gecko Security submitting his stuff. So we have really good high quality applicants, which is what really makes it work as well. But really, I just want to shout out what really make this grant work is actually those community leaders like Good Kitty. Like I'm just a guy, and like think of me as a Nick Fury. I just put these like super team together, but really it's up to these heroes to come together and really knock it out of the park. And without them, like I swear to you, it wouldn't work. But I'm just a guy who really I kind of know who's good at what. Bring those people together and bring the community together.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. It's been incredible to see the growth between cohorts 1 and 2. And I'm excited. I'm assuming there will be a cohort 3 and a 4, and it's going to keep growing, especially when Nakamoto comes out and a lot more people come in.
I hope so. Yeah, gonna be depends on the Stacks Foundation, but we're gonna keep pushing as a community because we're gonna keep it running. Like we're gonna keep the spaces running without the DeGrants. I think of DeGrants as just one of the elements. We really need to keep accumulating these talents in the same space, bring them together, bring them working together, because that's how we're going to get the best out of all the projects, by having them collaborative, having them talking to each other, stop working in isolation, and by keep hosting these spaces after DeGrant 2 is over. I think it's going to be a pretty important task that we're going to try to take on as a community.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hero and Good Kitty, for giving us an update there. Guys, we have a little more than 5 minutes left with some legends on stage. So what else do we want to talk about, everyone? Resh, you're just joining us right now. Do you have any questions for us? Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, not so much of a question, but an observation on Christopher and Dan. I'll start off with Dan, to be honest. I don't, the speed at which he's reiterating boom, it's insane. I don't know whether he is shared in terms of how fast he's changing things and how fast he's building it. He's always downplays himself, you know, and I have had the opportunity to see the changes he makes, and I'm pretty sure he dropped some alpha here about the how he's going to make Bitcoin more than just a payment rail by introducing a chat function there.
You're right.
I don't think people understand the impact that's going to have, because he truly is embodying the saying, everything is coming back to Bitcoin and taking it to the next level. So that's one element. And I truly believe what he's going to be introducing, I will take it one far ahead and say, like, it'll take on the Web2 elements of WeChat and Telegram down the line. That's my personal perspective there. Now, for Christopher, I've had the opportunity of seeing his speed as well, because I remember this typing, hey, will there be a tutorial? This is like 48 hours before his launch on Vela. And then he said, okay, it's coming. And literally in 48 hours, he made a tutorial showing people how you can build using no-code clarity. And I'm not sure if everybody has had the opportunity to see the YouTube video. It's about more than 10 minutes long, and it's so good, so clear, that if you have not had the opportunity to view it, go and grab it. And once you've done that, I would say buy from somebody who has multiple passes. Just buy one. You will love using no-code clarity. So just an observation, because I know these two guys, how great they are, and I can't wait to work closely with them. Oh yeah, Chris, do you have any more alpha to share? What's coming in July? Because I've been seeing the tweets, and I'm very, very curious here.
Well, first and foremost, we have the testing of the AI plugin generator, so that's coming. For lifetime pass holders, they'll be able to gain access to that straight away. We might be adding another tier. So No Code Clarity is a dApp launchpad, and it allows for people to ideate and prototype and then obviously launch. What would happen if, along with front end, back end, and Clarity contract, if there was a fourth tier where you could create your own AI multi-agent systems? I'll just leave it there.
Where do I buy a
All
lifetime
right.
pass? Where do I find a lifetime pass?
I'll give it to you. Don't worry, Dan. I got you sorted. Don't worry there.
All right, anyone. So, Resh, thanks for coming up and being the hype man and giving us some more clarity and backstory on Dan and Christopher. Kobe, did you have a question for us? Kabi, excuse me.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. I've been joining these conversations for the longest time, since I think the first few episodes. These conversations have really helped me understand this ecosystem, and I'm seeing something really special being built here. And I've been really excited about just being part of a team that's working on something really exciting, not necessarily looking at the hype in the markets and the price and stuff like that, but just sitting to discuss epic tools and building day in day out for the long. A majority of people in this space, unfortunately, are just discussing the short-term hype, but being a part of such tight community that discusses outlook out there in the tens of years, and things that will exist beyond just this bull market, is something really exciting. So I actually am really interested in joining whichever team that's interested in working with me. I have been working with Luna Crash, building their community for the last 4 years, and I have applied for opportunities here and there within this ecosystem. I keep insisting because it's something that I really want to be part of. So other than that, congratulations, guys. You're really working on something that's intriguing to me, and I know a majority of people out there that find this really revolutionary, especially in a time when people are just looking at prices.
Wow, Kabi, thank you so much for that feedback, for jumping on and sharing your experience. So it sounds like you've found and recognized how great this community is. I swear, someone has to have a drinking game. How many times does the word community pop up in our spaces here, because it really is, it's one of the best parts about Stacks. The sleeping giant, I know there's a lot happening, but when you look at the potential of what Stacks is going to become, especially post Nakamoto, the future's looking bright, everyone. Hero, go for it.
I just want to invite Cabby to Stacks calendar, where you can know when all the events are happening, including this space. And there's basically daily Twitter spaces that you can join if you follow the right people. But if you follow the calendar, it will tell you when things are happening. Then you can follow that person who is hosting the space, and you can join one of the spaces and just like get deeper into the ecosystem if you want.
Great.
Thanks, Hiro.
Great point, Hero. I just pinned the calendar to the nest. All right, well, everyone, it is 9:00 on the dot, and that means that it is time for the Building on Bitcoin BitFlow spaces. So I don't want to run over into their space. So definitely hop over, follow BitFlow. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us here. This was really one of my favorite shows. I always enjoy when I get to catch up with all the Stacks people. So I definitely want to send us off with Christopher's music. So linger on if you can give a full listen. And that's a wrap for today's show. Once again, thank you to all of our guests, Christopher with No Code Clarity, Dan Trevino from Boom Wallet, and definitely make sure to give everyone a follow up here, support them as they support us. And thanks for joining us in the lounge. A heads up, we've got a new show time. So starting next week, we're going to go every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. This is our second season now, the summer season, and we got a new time slot. So Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Leather is your gateway to everything Bitcoin, from DeFi to stacks, ordinals, runes, stamps, NFTs, and more. You can visit our blog and learn center at leather.io. Christopher, take us out.
Got family business, organize the fam, then we getting riches. Down to spiritual opulence. Scriptures in my subconsciousness. Hey, excellence is the goal. I never will sold my soul, even if I ain't have a pot to piss. That's not a bar, I've been tested. If territory is to go being large, come with stretching, we often sin without consequence. Wrapped in flesh, stuck in time till the sun for a sense. Wow, evil's patiently lurking. Watch out for silver-tongued serpents that's moving like they see urchins and chasing bags with no Birkin. They perverse with their purpose. Some are even in churches, some are even in churches, some are even in churches. Lord, MBO's above in the club. Become what you consume, so don't go listen to thugs and ladies that's in position that's choosing money, not love. Chasing fashion and drugs, attention, proverb and plugs. God, oh, bless your socks off if obedience the standard. Disobedience leads to cancer. Don't walk with the crowd. Worldly wisdom's a joke. Don't be fickle, stand firm and steadfast as Job. Yo, OG told me to expect the haters. A prophetess from Gambia told me expect a greater. My loving wife had told me to expect a favor. Open heaven, yes, I'm blessed in major. Worldwide through prayer calls in the Zoom. Might be the youngest, but the most connected in the room. First slowly, then like a sonic boom. Holy Ghost is telling me that it's really coming soon. Right now I'm feeling chosen. God warned me in dreams, so I'm just knowing. Harvest is here, still focused on sowing. Got the vision and the hunger, and I'm still growing. So I keep growing. Putting on and pulling up. Back in the hood, but I didn't think I was good enough. Dodging bullets in jail time. I ain't ever have to go say your honor. I did what I did. I was swimming with piranhas. God took my dysfunction and made it to a disco. Generational woe through prayers in the crypto. Rage against machines like a rock star. Sing for the one like a pop star. In tops of five, where your heart at? The devil spark at you, you better go and spark back. Listen, they saying if you scared, go to church, but them gangsters in the mob end up dead in the church, huh? Ephesus ain't the organism. Reborn fearless, so that means we reborn to get them. But remember, we model what they follow. Do they see you full of Jesus or empty, sleepy, hollow? God kept me from my destiny. Since junior, I was out committing felonies. Breaking hearts, just trying to go and let it be. Inhaling vice, trying to cope, I would let it breathe. Tales of a past addict. Stress so heavy might make you asthmatic. Sin so filthy might have to hazmat it. I got to the point in me where I had it. That point came and I zipped past, breaking law, speeding, trying to get a zip fast, you know. I would sell some, roll some, God save me and I ain't hold none. Even if the rain poured, blood-stained doors, cut dead weight, foundation shake. Do this in remembrance, do this for descendants, praying for the remnant, all until ascension.
And that is the show, ladies and gentlemen. Christopher, that's incredible. Man, okay, we got to have a follow-up. I know there's another space happening, everyone, so I'm going to close it out here. Thank you again, everyone, for showing up. I'll see you next week.